We're going in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what up, everyone? Tay here. And today I want to dig into several new leaks that have dropped recently for Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars and Phase 6, including some from just the other day as well as some from a few weeks ago, and how those could tie into some even older leaks from a few months ago. Now, the vast majority of what I'm going to be talking about in this video are Avengers leaks. However, in order to break those down, I am going to need to mention the recent leaks that dropped for the Fantastic Four post-credit scene. It'll just be a brief thing, but still, because of that, I should throw out a spoiler warning for the Fantastic Four, because I'm sure there are some of you that may not want to hear that. And now, when I do get to that point in the video, I will throw up a little spoiler reminder. It'll probably be like, a minute worth of video time, so if you want to skip ahead or something like that, you can, or if you just want to skip this one, I also get that. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there so everyone is aware. And then also, if you missed my last video on Star-Lord, Nova, big upcoming stuff for the Cosmic MCU, check it out. It's linked in the description down below. And then there will not be super thanks for today's video. Just going to let them build up a little bit. So I will be getting to those in the next video. I haven't forgot about them. And yeah, as always, if you would like to leave a super thanks on today's video with a question, comment, whatever, those are greatly appreciated. And I will get to those in the next video. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share the video, all that good stuff, and let's get into it.
Where are we? What happened?
We were hoping you could tell us. All we know is that Binary found her. My theory? You somehow crossed through a tear in space-time. You are now in a reality parallel to your own. I'll come by and check on you later.
Who are you?
All right. So over the past month, there's been several new MCU leaks coming out from this new leaker who goes by James Mackle, something like that, who apparently has resurfaced on the scene again from an older account that supposedly had a pretty decent, reliable track record. Now, obviously, we can't know for sure how reliable this dude is, but there are multiple things that makes the info he's posting come off as fairly believable, at least in my opinion. For one thing, his Twitter account is not monetized, meaning he's not making money off of his leaks. And also, he's just not really, doing engagement bait or posting these big, crazy, over-the-top scoops or anything like that. And as we know, that is something that's become very common on Twitter these days, especially with all the different scoopers and the supposed update sites, that stuff. So yeah, that kind of stood out. And then he also says that his source is someone who works in Marvel Studios' visual design department, and that the leaks he's been getting recently are from this person who has shown him and also given him detailed descriptions of current storyboard and concept art for Avengers Doomsday, which he's even posted some supposed receipts for. So yeah, obviously we always have to have our skeptical antennas up whenever it comes to leaks. But considering that most of what he's saying does line up with everything else we know about the movie so far, and it's nothing too crazy or over the top, I do think that these leaks come off as pretty plausible. Now, something that's important to note that he noted as well is that these leaks are based on concept art and storyboard art, so it's not a for sure thing to end up in the final cut of the movie. But at the same time, it does still give us big details on which characters will likely end up being teamed up and working together, and what we can expect from some of the big action sequences, and the characters' different suit designs, stuff like that. And these newer leaks that this dude posted are kind of an expansion of some of the stuff that he posted a couple of weeks ago that I didn't get a chance to talk about yet, regarding the big Avengers vs. X-Men incursion battle sequence that will likely happen in the second act of the movie. And what his source has said about this sequence based on the current concept designs is that there is concept art that is titled as the Invincible Avengers, and that the characters that are involved in this Invincible Avengers team-up include some members of Sam's Avengers team, such as Sam Wilson, Shang-Chi, Hulk, Captain Marvel, and Ant-Man, as well as other heroes like the Fantastic Four, Thor, She-Hulk, Shuri, M'Baku, and Namor, along with Yelena, Bob, and Bucky of the New Avengers. Now, if this leak is true, then I do think it's important to note that the Invincible Avengers title is probably not going to be an official team name or anything like that will happen in the movie, and that it's more likely that this is probably just a name that Marvel Studios are using internally to describe this specific group of heroes that are working together. I mean, who knows? Maybe there could be some reference to that in the movie where at some point one of the characters makes a joke or a line or something calling this group the Invincible Avengers. But I'm just saying that I wouldn't expect it to be any kind of official title or anything. And one of the things I wanted to mention real quick is that part of his update on this leak is that he added an update with descriptions of what each character's new suit or wardrobe looked like in these recent concept images. And I'm just going to try to go through these real quick, but what the description said is that Sam is shown wearing a suit that's similar to the one in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that it has some differences and red wings similar to this suit from the comics. And then he said that Carol is wearing a sleeveless suit that is mainly blue, but with red on the upper torso and gold trim. Then Shuri's Black Panther suit is described as being similar to the one that she wore in Wakanda Forever, but with purple and silver highlights instead of gold highlights, and also that she's wearing a claw necklace that appears to be a tribute to T'Challa. Actually, I have to jump in and interrupt my own video real quick, because as I was working on editing this video, this James dude actually clarified one of his earlier posts saying that, well, Shuri will be one of the members that will be a part of this Invincible Avengers group, that there is also, according to him, a male Black Panther also featured in this concept art, apparently during this big X-Men Avengers battle sequence. And that's a little bit surprising, but really not that much, because we have heard different rumors that there will actually be some other heroes besides the X-Men that we could see from this X-Men universe in Avengers Doomsday. And that does line up because we do know that Binary is a character who's working with the X-Men from the post-credit scene of the Marvels. Now, I don't know if Black Panther would necessarily be working with the X-Men or how he would fit into that, but there have been rumors that Marvel Studios are perhaps looking at Damson Idris to either be recast as a new version of Black Panther going forward into the future, even beyond the Multiverse saga, or that he could just be cast to play an alternate variant version of Black Panther for Avengers Doomsday and or Avengers Secret Wars. And recently, Damson Idris was even asked about this, and he kind of played coy, not answering the question, which is always a telltale sign. And I completely buy that Marvel Studios are at least looking at Damson Idris as a potential Black Panther, because as I'm sure you guys remember, there was that Avengers concept art that leaked a few months ago, and some of the images that were included in that art showed Damson Idris as a variant of Black Panther. But we know from the title that these images were saved under from the concept artist herself, that this concept art was not meant to be showing Damson Idris in a depiction as T'Challa, but instead as T'Chanda, who is actually T'Challa's grandfather. And once that concept art came out, I speculated that maybe we could see Damson Idris playing a variant of T'Chanda who is from a different universe where he is still currently the Black Panther. Now, again, that is based off of that older concept art leak that's different from this one. So we can't say for sure if that's what's going to happen, but that definitely seems like a possibility just based on what we've seen so far. Now, there is also the possibility that Damson Idris or someone else could be cast to play T'Challa 2 or T'Challa Jr., the one who was briefly introduced at the end of Wakanda Forever. Now, I do think that that's possible as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel Studios decided to wait on introducing T'Challa 2 until after the Multiverse saga is over, but that we could still see a variant of Black Panther like T'Chanda in the upcoming Avengers films, because not having a Black Panther in Avengers Secret Wars would be kind of a disappointment, because Black Panther was a pretty important character in Hickman's Secret Wars comic. So yeah, since I was already talking about Shuri as the Black Panther in these concept art leaks for Avengers Doomsday, I figured I better jump in and also mention this brand new additional leak that just dropped while I was working on this. But anyways, let's jump back to these character suit descriptions. Then M'Baku is reportedly going to be finally getting his big, furry, white gorilla suit from the comics, which it'll be interesting to see if that one actually makes it to the screen. And then it sounds like Namor will also be getting a comic-accurate suit upgrade, as he is described as wearing long-sleeved, scaly black armor that covers his arms and shoulders with an open chest, blue pants, and even his golden trident. Which again, it'll be interesting to see if he actually has the trident in the movie. Then, as far as Ant-Man goes, it says that Scott will be sporting a new Ant-Man suit that is described as a mix of red and metallic gray with a red visor on a silver helmet with antennas. And then the description said that Yelena and Bucky are the only ones who are not in completely new suits, as they are described as looking basically the same as they did in the Thunderbolts post-credit scene. And then the other thing that's interesting to note is that it says that Bob is a part of this battle, at least in the concept art, and that he is shown as being back in his SENTRY suit from the Thunderbolts movie. And when we saw Bob in the Thunderbolts post-credits, he was still avoiding becoming the SENTRY because it was too dangerous because of the risk of the Void taking control again. So I think something must happen between that scene and when this expansion battle sequence happens that will change that. But that's something we're going to have to save for a second that I will come back to a bit later in the video. And then besides all of those, two of the other character descriptions that stood out the most to me were the descriptions for Hulk and Thor. Because Hulk is described as working with She-Hulk, who it says basically looks pretty similar to the way she did in the She-Hulk series. But Hulk is described as being in his Smart Hulk form, but it says that he is bigger and angrier looking, almost like a mix of Professor Hulk and Savage Hulk put together. And this does make me wonder about what Hulk's bigger story arc will be throughout Phase 6. Because as we all know, it's been reported that Mark Ruffalo will have a pretty big supporting role in Brand New Day, and that we will apparently see the Hulk revert back to his Savage Hulk form, similar to the way he was in the first Avengers movie. In fact, the movie's cinematographer, Brett Pollack, even posted something online the other day that seems to confirm that we will see the Savage Hulk in Brand New Day. So this does make me wonder what Hulk's bigger story arc will be in Phase 6 and how he'll go from Savage Hulk in Brand New Day back to Smart Hulk in Avengers Doomsday, but maybe a slightly different, more savage version of Smart Hulk or something. So yeah, that's something we can talk about in a future video as well, but I thought that was worth noting. But then Thor's design was the one that stuck out to me the most, because he is described as wearing sleeveless black armor, black pants with gold boots and gold trim with 4 golden circles on his chest plate, along with a hooded red cloak. And this basically lines up with some of the reports that came out like 2 weeks ago that said that Thor's look in Avengers Doomsday will be very similar to the way he looked in Jason Aaron's Unworthy Thor comics. However, it sounds like his look might actually be more of a mix of the way Thor looked in Unworthy Thor and also the Mighty Thor. Because the kicker to this is that Thor is also described as wielding a golden hammer like the gold version of Mjolnir from the Mighty Thor comic run. And I just thought that was interesting because it makes me wonder if this will actually be a new hammer or if this will just be an upgraded version of Mjolnir, and if this might signify an evolution in Thor's powers. Because in the comics, Thor is way more powerful than he's been portrayed so far in the MCU. And back after we saw Loki realize his true potential as a god in the Loki season finale, when he became the god of stories and took control of the multiverse, after that happened, I did a video where I discussed a theory on that, where I talked about how we could end up seeing a similar evolution of Thor's powers in the upcoming Avengers films, where he could finally tap into the true potential of his powers, not just as Thor, but as a true god and the Allfather. So maybe this golden hammer that he has in Avengers Doomsday could be just a small sign at that evolution. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this is actually a new hammer or not, because with this being a movie where we know characters are going to be traveling to different universes, it doesn't seem crazy to think that Thor might find an alternate version of Mjolnir that is perhaps more powerful in one of these different realities he visits. But yeah, I just thought that was one of the more interesting details about these suit description leaks. So yeah, in short, it sounds like most of the characters that we will be seeing in Avengers Doomsday will be getting suit and armor upgrades that are even more comic book accurate than what we've seen in the past. Which we have heard this exact same thing reported recently about the X-Men, that when we see the X-Men in this movie, they'll finally be in their colorful, vibrant suits that'll be much more comic book accurate than anything we ever saw in the Fox X-Men films. But anyways, now that we've gone through all of that, now it's time to get to the good stuff and really dig into the meat of the video, where we're going to break down the rest of these recent Avengers Doomsday leaks and what it will mean for the overall plot of the movie. But just real quick before we move on, I would just say that if you are enjoying and nerding out on this video and you would like to leave a like or even share the video, that would be greatly appreciated because it really does help out a lot. So yeah, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, and if you are liking the video, please like or share, and that is greatly appreciated. But anyways, let's move on to the next section.
Yeah, I don't have her number. She does this a lot. Guys, stay safe. Welcome to the circus.
Alright, so like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the video, there were a bunch of other really big details that were also mentioned in these initial concept art leaks. And one of the first questions that comes up when I read these leaks is, why does this Invincible Avengers team, or this Invincible Avengers group, go to the X-Men universe in the first place, and how does it end up being this specific pairing of characters? Because based on where everything currently stands in the MCU, this is kind of an odd pairing of characters. Because this Invincible Avengers group includes most of, but not all, of Sam's Avengers, then 3 members of the new Avengers who are currently in conflict with Sam and his Avengers, plus Thor, Shuri, M'Baku, and Namor, as well as the Fantastic Four, who don't even know all of these other heroes yet because they've presumably just arrived in the MCU 616 universe at the beginning of Avengers Doomsday, shortly before this multiversal mission even takes place. So in regards to that question, based on this leak and other leaks we've seen in the past, this group are traveling to this X-Men universe in order to rescue Monica Rambeau and also to stop an incursion between this universe and the MCU 616 universe that may have been caused by Carol, Bruce, and Wong experimenting on Carol's quantum band. However, if that's the reason why they go to this other universe, that still leaves the question of how will that result in this specific group of characters teaming up for this mission? Well, we've heard leaks and rumors that after this battle at the X-Mansion, that the X-Men and the Avengers will eventually come to the realization that they are both on the same side and that the true enemy is Doctor Doom. And so after this battle is over, what we could end up seeing is the X-Men and this Invincible Avengers group traveling together to the TVA in order to try and help them protect Loki and to stop Doctor Doom from usurping Loki and basically taking over the multiverse. And that could actually be how Thor gets involved, because if at some point before this, at some point before the events of Avengers Doomsday or early on in the movie, Thor somehow gets wind of the fact that Loki is still alive and that he's holding together the multiverse and that he's being threatened by this new, terrifying threat in Doctor Doom, then I would imagine that Thor would likely do everything in his power to go and protect Loki. And the way that I think the Avengers and the heroes of the 616 universe will probably find out about Doctor Doom and his grand plan in the first place is most likely going to be because of the Fantastic Four. Because according to these recent leaks, the reason that the Fantastic Four will end up being a part or included in this Invincible Avengers group is because they are tracking Doctor Doom and trying to get their son Franklin back. And this, of course, ties into the leaks that dropped recently regarding the Fantastic Four post-credits scene. Because after that special screening that happened in LA, there were a bunch of different leaks that dropped. And there was actually a new Fantastic Four leak that just dropped a few days ago that included an even more detailed description of that post-credit scene. And basically what it said is that during the post-credit scene, we will see Sue reading a bedtime story to baby Franklin, and that when she gets up to grab another book, there will be a flash of light and the sound of a teleportation device opening, and that when Sue turns around, she will see Doctor Doom in a silver cloak holding Franklin in his arms and then disappearing. And of course, this post-credits leak seems to confirm a big theory that I've talked about and, a lot of other people have talked about, that Doctor Doom will end up abducting Franklin and will likely then try to raise him as his own son, similar to what happened in Hickman's Secret Wars comic, and that Franklin and his powers will play a huge role in Doctor Doom's plan to create a new universe from the ashes of the multiverse, because he's trying to really save the multiverse from the incursions. And just on a quick side note, what I thought was also interesting about this updated description of the Fantastic Four post-credits is that it also reveals that Doctor Doom will seemingly have a teleportation device, which I think will likely end up being revealed as an MCU version of his time platform technology from the comics, which we also saw Reed Richards of the 838 universe use in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And I just bring this up real quick because I do think that the time platform is a little bit significant, because not only can Doctor Doom use it to teleport, but he can also use it to travel through time and to even open doorways to other universes. So basically it can be used for multiversal travel. So if this teleportation device does end up being a version of Doom's time platform from the comics, then it seems likely that this will be what Doctor Doom will use to travel the multiverse in Avengers Doomsday. That he won't actually need a multiversal ship like Kang or the Fantastic Four, that he'll literally just be able to open a doorway between universes. And, considering that this is the multiverse saga and he's the big villain, just that power alone makes him pretty powerful and pretty scary and likely to be several steps ahead of the rest of the heroes, because from the sounds of it, they will be forced to travel the multiverse through ships. Unless, of course, they get a hold of America Chavez, who could then basically do the same thing. And according to these recent concept art leaks that I've been breaking down, the apparent insider who gave this dude this information also said that after Doom gets a hold of Franklin, that he will take him to a universe that he referred to as Universe X, and that in Avengers Doomsday, the Fantastic Four will be trying to find this Universe X so that they can get Franklin back. So maybe this could be the reason why the Fantastic Four will end up in the MCU 616 universe in the first place, because Doctor Doom could come to the 616 universe at some point earlier in Doomsday, and maybe the Fantastic Four are somehow tracking him and end up following him there. And then maybe from there, they could also track him to the X-Men universe. And just real quick, you also have to remember that in the past, there's been these casting reports saying that Marvel Studios were looking for a young kid to play the role of Franklin Richards in Avengers Doomsday, and that he will not be a baby like he is in Fantastic Four First Steps. And if those casting reports are true, then what this will likely mean is that from the perspective of the Fantastic Four team, there will likely be a significant time jump between when Doom takes Franklin at the end of First Steps and when the Fantastic Four actually appear at the beginning of Avengers Doomsday. And I think that's probably why the Fantastic Four ship actually looked different at the end of the Thunderbolts in the post-credits, is not because it's a different team or a different character, but actually because it's just a new ship that Reed and the Fantastic Four have likely built in that time gap between films. And then as far as this Universe X that Doom supposedly takes Franklin to, there's a lot of questions about what this universe could be and what the significance of it will be. Because there is actually a universe called Universe X in the comics that Franklin played a very important role in. So perhaps Marvel Studios could be adapting some elements from the Universe X saga from the comics into plot elements of Avengers Doomsday. Or maybe it's not even what the universe will be called, and it's just a term that Marvel Studios are using internally to describe this universe until they come up with a better name, and this is just what the concept artists are calling it. Or another possibility is that this could also be the name of the X-Men universe that we saw at the end of the Marvels. Which, if that was the case, and Doctor Doom has taken Franklin to that same universe, the X-Men universe, then that would likely explain why the Fantastic Four end up joining with this Invincible Avengers group on this mission, because they are trying to reach Franklin, and they have tracked Doctor Doom to that universe. And it just happens to be the same universe that the Avengers are going to rescue Monica Rambeau. And, something like that would actually line up a lot with some of the other stuff we've heard regarding this whole Avengers versus X-Men battle sequence that'll take place at the X-Mansion. Because we've all seen the set photos and videos for the set of this big X-Mansion battle sequence that is currently filming right now at Windsor Park in the UK. And in those past set videos, you can see the arms and legs and different pieces of destroyed Sentinels. And according to some of the scoops that dropped last month, it is said that Doctor Doom will actually be the one who instigates this battle between the Avengers and the X-Men, and that he will be the one who takes control of these Sentinels and sends them to the X-Mansion to attack the Avengers and the X-Men in the first place. So if Doctor Doom is hiding out in this same X-Men universe, then that could be the reason why he would send the Sentinels to attack the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, because he could be worried that they are now getting too close, they're hot on his tail, so he has to send the Sentinels to slow them down. And that could actually end up being what brings the X-Men and the Avengers together, because once the X-Men realize that there's this third party who's pitting them against each other and sending these Sentinels, that could be what wakes them up to the fact that the Avengers are not their enemy and that they should actually work together. Plus, we have to assume that Monica Rambeau has actually been living with the X-Men in this other universe since the end of the Marvels. So I'm assuming that once the Avengers arrive in this universe, that she will try to intervene, but my guess is that everything will just kick off so quickly and the battle will happen so fast that the X-Men won't know who the Avengers are, and that a lot of damage will happen before Monica can even get everyone's attention to try and stop it. Because one of the things that this leaker did note is that in the updated concept art leaks, that two of the characters that are not shown are Monica and Xavier. And that's exactly what he theorized, is that maybe they're not shown because they're technically still inside the mansion and just don't get out to the battle quick enough before it's over. But anyways, the other characters that are also included in this Invincible Avengers group are Bucky, Yelena, and Bob. And I think this is also a bit curious because during the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, it's revealed that Sam's Avengers and the New Avengers are in the middle of this big conflict, and that Sam is even suing the New Avengers over the rights to the Avengers name. So the other question is how do we go from that happening to Bucky and Yelena now working with Sam's Avengers? And I remember after the Thunderbolts movie came out, I said that when the events of Avengers Doomsday start to kick off, that everything would probably end up being so chaotic that it would likely force Bucky and Sam to set aside their issues, at least for the time being, and work together to save the multiverse. And I think that's probably what we're going to see happen. Now, that's not to say that I think it will be completely conflict-free, because in a recent interview with Danny Ramirez, he said that the conflict between Sam's Avengers and the New Avengers would be addressed in Avengers Doomsday. But my guess is that it will probably play out in more of a way to where Bucky and Sam are forced to work together, and they are kind of bickering and sniping at each other the whole time, and that any big ramifications between these two teams will be saved for the next saga. Because based on the Thunderbolts post-credit scene, which according to Lewis Pullman is actually a scene from early on in Avengers Doomsday, we know that the New Avengers are alerted to the Fantastic Four's ship entering Earth's atmosphere. So maybe what we could see happen is that after this moment in the post-credit scene, the New Avengers could go into their jet or into their ship and go and intercept the Fantastic Four to find out what they are doing on Earth. And that once they do, maybe Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four could fill them in on what's happening with Doctor Doom and the Multiverse of War and the incursions or whatever. And that with the New Avengers being this new team that don't really have their footing yet, they could be so overwhelmed by this information that they don't really know what to do, so they decide to take them to Sam and his Avengers team for help. Or another possibility is that maybe when the Fantastic Four ship arrive in Earth's atmosphere, that maybe Sam's Avengers could also get that alert and they could go to investigate the Fantastic Four's arrival at the same time, and that Sam's Avengers and the New Avengers could both end up reaching the Fantastic Four at the same moment, and that this could be what forces the two teams to work together. And then, speaking of the New Avengers, another question we have to come back to is what's going on with Bob during this whole X-Mansion battle sequence? Because he is another character that is also mentioned as being a part of these concept images and fighting alongside the other Avengers in his gold SENTRY suit. And when we last saw Bob in the Thunderbolts post-credits, he was no longer acting as the Sentry because he said it was too dangerous because of the threat of the Void. So he had basically become the new Avengers mascot. So with Bob just being Bob, why would the new Avengers even take him on this mission to the X-Men universe in the first place? Well, perhaps it's because this mission is so dangerous and so important that Bucky and Yelena decide to take him on the mission because they actually need the Sentry's power, and so they convince Bob that he can control himself and keep the Void persona in check, and that is how he ends up on this adventure to the X-Men universe and actually becoming the Sentry again. Which, if that's the case, then this could actually spell disaster for all the Avengers, because this could result in the Sentry eventually coming face to face with Doctor Doom, which could then set up a very bleak subplot for Bob and the other Avengers in Avengers Secret Wars that will tie into Doctor Doom's overall plans. However, I don't really want to dig into that right now because I think that's just a topic for a whole separate video. And then another thing that's also important to note is that obviously there's a ton of other characters who will also be in Avengers Doomsday that won't be a part of this mission to the X-Men universe. And according to some of the other scoops and leaks we've heard, while this Invincible Avengers squad is on their mission into the multiverse, there will also be an invasion of other characters happening on Earth 616 that will add a whole nother huge aspect to the entire multiversal war plot of the movie. But again, I don't really have time to dig into all of that right now, so I think that's also something we'll have to save for a future video. So yeah, I think that'll cover it for what we're going to talk about today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I think it's always fun breaking down these big leaks and kind of spinning our own theories out of them. So if you guys have theories, which I know you do, please leave them in the comments down below. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you like this video, it would be awesome if you left a like or maybe gave it a share, because that really does help in this competitive YouTube landscape. And then lastly, if you would like to leave a super thanks with a question or a comment or maybe a theory, anything you want to say, I will read and respond to those in the next video. All right, I think that covers it, everyone. Check out any of my past videos in the description down below, and I will be back soon with the next one.